welcome to the 6.0 new feature webinar. We're going to go through all the new features and updates that have been added to the 6.0 version of CLO. I'm going to begin by pointing out that we've updated the object browser to have icons. If you hover over the icon, the name will appear. Next, I'm going to go over the update to the DXF import window. All of the import settings are the same. We have just consolidated some of the information into drop-down menus. So here I'll just show a side-by-side of the 5.2 window versus the 6.0 so you can see the difference. So this is for importing a pattern, but if you're exporting a pattern, the DXF export window has changed as well. If you go to File, Export, DXF, choose a saving location and name, the options here have been consolidated also. There is an additional option that has been added here called Export Pattern Bounding Box. This feature is really meant to prints or texture mapping in Photoshop or Illustrator. So if you select single bounding box, you will have a box around every single pattern piece when you open the DXF in another program. And if you select separate pattern bounding box, you will have one giant bounding box around the entire set of patterns. So I've exported this structure with both options as the separate bounding box and as the single bounding box, just to show you what it looks like. So here, if you choose separate, you will have a bounding box around every single pattern piece. And you can even see that the layout is exactly the same as we exported it from the 2D window. And then if I select the single example, where it puts a single bounding box around all the patterns, this is what that is going to look like. So that concludes the DXF export updates. Here's a review of how to set up and use the UV editor mode options that are added to the 6.0 almost a square. So when you select it, you can see generally a square shape because the UV mode layout is based on squares. Some of the UV editor options will adopt the layout that has been set up here. So let's move into that mode. Here you can move to simulation and choose UV mode. So when you first move into the window, the pattern pieces are going to be scattered around randomly, and you will also have UVs for your trims. The first process we'll go through is fitting all of these pieces into the very first UV block. So if you right-click in the 2D background, you will find Reset UV to 2D Arrangement. When you click on that, it's going to shrink all of your patterns down and also arrange them into that layout that you had developed in the 2D window. Then it'll be easier to resize these pieces to all fit within this first UV. All of the trim UVs will be available as well, and they'll end up in the corner when you select this reset option. So here I'm just going to pull them out because I really want to take them and place them into any of the remaining areas that I have in my UV map area. So now I'm going to move these trim pieces to some of the spare surrounding areas around my UV layout. Then you can right-click in the 2D background and select Fit All UV to 0 through 1. This dialog will appear and ask us how we would like to do this. So the default is set to length, and this is essentially a type of padding or buffer space around the edge of the UV. We can do this by length, actually using millimeters, or you can use relativity to the UV coordinate. So switching to this UV coordinate option will give you a different scale of 0 to 1 that you can adjust up or down to change the amount of space away from the UV edges. And you can hit OK to confirm that size. Then I'm just going to show you that here you have a toggle menu to preview all of the maps and the mesh before you export them. And then next I'm going to show UV snapshot. If you click on this icon, this dialog will appear. First, you want to click Saving Path to choose the file saving location and choose a file name. The size here is the pixel size, so it's at 2K by default. And if you wanted this to be 4K, you would double it to 4096. Turning on anti-alias will help smooth the lines that are exported. And then you can also change the color of the mesh that will result in your snapshot. So I'm going to leave the UV area setting at 0 to 1 because previously I had asked all of my pieces to fit into the 0 to 1 UV. save, and the snapshot will process. So now I've generated that snapshot, and you can see here that the wire color is blue, and my layout matches everything that I've created. Next, I'm going to review the bake textures function. So directly below UV snapshot, we have bake textures.